Hey guys, my name is Philip Blake from the Philip Moss channel. Now on today, in this video, I'll be ranking all the Thomas and Friends movies from worst to best. I know I did this before back in 2018, but I thought I redo like my ranking list. And to celebrate 75 years of Thomas, I decided to rewatch all the Thomas and Friends movies. So here's how it's gonna work. Number 14 will be the worst of all time, 13 through 11 being alright/okay, 10 through 6 being the good, 5 through 2 being the great, and the number 1 being the best of all time. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting with number 14, Day of the Diesels. Now, Day of the Diesels, when I first saw this movie, I thought it was just odd, in my opinion. So, in the opening, we see Thomas chugging along the tracks, and then he sees like a fire, and Percy's there, and Thomas helps Percy try to fight the fire, and then a new engine called Belle puts out the fire with her water cannons, and the fire is out, and then Sir Topham Hatt asks Thomas to show Belle around Sodor, and then Percy, on the other hand, he feels left out while he was doing the mail run and all that stuff. Devious Diesel invites him to the Diesel Works to see Diesel 10 and the other Diesels, but when I was watching this movie, I was just confused, like, well, we got the Diesels because it's called Day of the Diesels, but why are we focusing on Percy? I mean, it feels like, in my opinion, Percy can't carry a movie on his own. I mean, it feels like, in my opinion, Thomas, he doesn't get a lot of screen time in this movie, in my opinion. I mean, it's been mainly focusing on Percy. Yeah, in my opinion, this is like the worst Thomas and Friends movie ever created. If you haven't seen this movie, I recommend none of you watch this one. So now we're moving on to the alright/okay movies, starting with number 13, and that is Misty on Rescue. Now, I know this movie never got any respect from the fandom, but there were some things that I actually liked in this movie, like some of the music scores were in this. The music scores, it was actually good. It wasn't terrible, but it was actually kind of good. I love the opening, like the opening tiles. The opening tile, I thought it was pretty cool. And there were some parts in the movie I thought that were pretty good. Like Thomas gets lost at sea. I thought that was pretty accurate. And this scene right here, to be honest, that one was actually kind of cool, to be honest. And I mean, other than that, this one's just sort of okay. That's why it's in my like 13 spot. I mean, I would have to say like Bash, Stash, and Ferdinand. They are sort of annoying in my opinion, but the new character Captain, he's a pretty good character. I actually like him. But yeah, that's why it's in my number 13 spot. Now moving on to number 12 and number 11, which I don't know which one I like more. And that is Calling All Engines and Big World Big Adventures. Let's talk about Calling All Engines because obviously this one came first. This movie came out to celebrate 60 years of Thomas back in 2005. Now, I remember loving this movie as a kid, but the learn segments right now, I mean, now that I'm older, the learn segments, it feels like they're in the way in the story plot of this movie. The last time I watched this, I skipped through the learning segments, but still watched the whole story plot, of course, and heard the songs. And the songs, it was actually really good in my opinion. But it was nice to see characters like Lady and Diesel 10 return. People say that Diesel 10's like, oh, he's out of character or whatever. And yeah, there were some characters that made great cameos in the movie or made like a good appearance. Like we get to see Derek in the music video trying to do things better. And we get to see like George at the near end, even though he didn't speak in this movie, but who cares? But overall, I also love the fighting scene, like the Steamies versus Diesels. They were battling against each other. I thought that was pretty cool. And as for Big World Big Adventures, now Big World Big Adventures, I know this movie when it first came out, a lot of people didn't like this one, but I really love how, I liked how Thomas was like was traveling around the world, and well, this little Australian car, Ace, he inspired Thomas to like race around the world or to be the first railway engine to go right around the world. And so he travels to 5 different continents, and then along the way he meets the tank engine Nia. There were some parts in that movie where Thomas did act like selfish in this movie, in my opinion. But it was nice to see young Bowmaker returning. I thought that was pretty cool, and he finally gets to speak in the show. And yeah, overall, these two movies are just fine, in my opinion. But these two are actually better than Misty on Rescue and Day of the Diesels, in my personal opinion. Now, moving on to the good movies, starting with number 10, is The Great Race. Now, The Great Race, this one's good. It's not a terrible movie, but a lot of people didn't like it as much as The Adventure Begins and Sodor's Legend of Lost Treasure. I mean, I thought it was still good in my opinion. Not the best, but still good. I mean, it feels like Gordon should have been the Deuteragonist instead of Ishima, in my opinion. But some of the international characters were pretty good, even though some of the international characters didn't have a chance to like have a speaking role or whatever. But it was nice to see the Flying Scotsman returned since the season 3 episode Tender Engines. And in Tender Engines, we just saw the Flying Scotsman's 2 tenders. But in this movie, we get to see the Flying Scotsman's like the engine body and the tenders all in one. And I thought Gordon like being like streamlined for a race was pretty cool. And the songs in there, they were good. I mean, wouldn't say it's my favorite soundtrack, but yeah, it's still good. Moving on to number 9 and number 8. I don't know which one I like best. This is another tie, and that is Tale of the Brave and Journey Beyond Sodor. Let's talk about Tale of the Brave first, since this one came first. Tale of the Brave, this one was actually pretty good. I thought the story plot was pretty nice, and the music in this film was actually still pretty good in my opinion. That it was pretty accurate, and the new characters, well, Reg, however, he only got one scene in that movie, and that was just it. There was nothing else. Marion and Timothy, they got the same amount of screen time, and Gator, however, he got the most screen time out of Timothy, Marion, and Reg, because he made a pretty good part in this movie, and he helps Percy how to be brave even when you do feel scared. And if you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. And Thomas and Percy, however, they share the same amount of, feels like Hit Entertainment gave Thomas and Percy the same amount of screen time in this movie, which that's what they should have done in Day of the Diesels. Overall, if you haven't seen this movie, I still recommend this one. This one's another good one. Moving on to Journey Beyond Sodor. This one, however, yes, I know, this one's different. Like, the engines are now bouncing, and so are the troublesome trucks, and the coaches, like Annie and Clarabelle and Henrietta. But this movie, I thought the story plot was actually really nice. Like, Thomas, he gets to go to the mainland. Well, he steals James's cars and tries to take them to Burlington Goods Yards. And James, however, he gets stuck on Thomas's branch line. And then when Thomas gets trapped at the steelworks, James has to go out and find him. And the new characters, Frank and Hurricane, they made pretty good antagonist roles in this film. And as for the experimental engines, Theo, Lexi, Merlin, Theo and Lexi, they're pretty good characters, but Merlin, he was like a really nice character. And Hugh Bonneville does a phenomenal job with Merlin, and I thought he does a pretty good job, like, in this movie overall. And I'm glad they brought him back in the season 22 episode, Seeing is Believing. I mean, overall, I still recommend you watch this one. In my opinion, I would say this is better than The Great Race. Moving on to number 7, Blue Mountain Mystery. Blue Mountain Mystery, when I first heard about this movie, I heard they were bringing back some of the narrow gauge engines like Scarloey, Renee, Sir Handel, Peter Simon, Rusty, which I was really excited for. And the new characters, Owen, Merrick, I thought they did a nice job. And then Luke, however, he was a pretty nice character. Thought he had a great backstory to it. Like, Luke tells Thomas like his flashback story and how he's worried that he might be sent away from Sodor from doing something bad. And then Winston, however, he's a pretty nice character now that Sir Topham Hatt could like inspect the island with a inspection rail car. Yeah, which is Winston, not to be confused with a diesel rail car. I mean, overall, I thought the story plot in this film was pretty nice, and the soundtrack, it was actually beautiful, too, in my personal opinion. In my opinion, this is definitely worth watching for. Now, moving on with number 6 is King of the Railway. King of the Railway, this one was actually pretty good. I actually liked it better than Blue Mountain Mystery. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love Blue Mountain Mystery, but King of the Railway, it feels like Hit Entertainment went through a lot of changes to the CGI era. They found a new animator, they found a new narrator, which is Mark Morgan. I thought he did a phenomenal job with this movie. And let's see, and they found a new head writer, which is Andrew Brenner. I thought he did a fabulous job with the movies and the seasons as head writer, and seeing like Jack, the front loader, making a return, he does look different compared to the one from the model era. Like, he's got like a square face and a different body. And if seeing both Jacks, like the model era and then the CGI era, you'll know what I'm talking about. But overall, I mean, the story plot was pretty nice, and the soundtrack was pretty good. And my favorite scenes in this movie were like Gordon Spencer. There was like, that happened in like 4 scenes. Like, Gordon and Spencer were like racing against each other, which is pretty cool. And the new characters, it feels like the new characters that I liked most in this movie are Steven and the Earl of Sodor. I thought they did a fabulous job. I mean, Millie, Connor, and Caitlin, they still did a nice job too in this movie. I mean, overall, this is a pretty nice movie, and I recommend you watch this one. Next up, we're moving on to the great movies, starting with number 5, Hero of the Rails. Hero of the Rails, I thought this was a pretty fantastic way to start the CGI era. Like, they've left the season 12, which is like half models, half CGI, and they finally went to like the full CGI era. I mean, overall, the story plot was actually pretty nice. Spencer made a pretty good antagonist role, and Hero, Victor, and Kevin, they're pretty nice characters, and I love Hero's flashback story was pretty nice, and the Thomas and Spencer racing and chasing scenes, that I thought it was pretty nice too. And Martin T. Sherman, I actually missed the Martin T. Sherman as the voice of Thomas and Percy. I thought he did a fabulous job. I mean, overall, this is a pretty nice movie. Definitely one of Sharon Miller's. Actually, overall, to be honest, this is like the best Sharon Miller Thomas and Friends movie ever created. Moving on with number 4, The Great Discovery. Now, The Great Discovery, in my opinion, this is definitely way better than Calling All Engines. I'm pretty sure most of you will agree with me on this. Like, they put the learned segments on the DVD special features instead of in the movie, like in the actual story plot of the movie. Like, Hit Entertainment, if you're going to make a Thomas and Friends movie, do not put learning segments in a Thomas movie. It's just wrong. I mean, overall, the story plot was actually pretty nice, and Pierce Brosnan does a pretty phenomenal job as the narrator in this movie, and it feels like he should have been a narrator for seasons 12 through 16 instead of bringing back the 2 Michaels. In my personal opinion, I mean, if Sharon Miller is going to do a better job, like with season 13 through 16. And overall, there was a lot of characters that were in this movie. Like, we could see a lot of the standard gauge engines, narrow gauge engines, and Jack and the Sodor Construction Company vehicles, and we get to see some non-rail vehicles like Birdie, Harold, and a couple of other characters that made cameos or just like appearances in this movie. Overall, and the soundtrack, the soundtrack was actually pretty nice too in this movie. And my favorite scenes would have to be like the bridge scene and the mine scene. I thought they did a pretty nice job. Especially, I love the model setup for Great Waterton. I thought it was pretty good in my opinion. Moving on with number 3, The Adventure Begins. The Adventure Begins, I know a lot of people love this movie. Of course, I love this movie too. This definitely follows more to like the classic model era. If you know what I'm talking about, this definitely follows more to like classic Thomas. Like when Andrew Brenner was like the writer of this movie, they were trying to follow more of like the seasons 1 through 7 of the Thomas era, if you know what I'm talking about. But overall, this film, it's basically a CGI creation of like the first 2 Railway series books, and the episodes first from the first season of Thomas, with the first 7 episodes of Thomas and Friends from season 1, with Henry to the Rescue being mentioned in this film. I thought this film, they did a really, really nice job in this film, and Joseph May as Thomas does a pretty nice job, and Rob Rackstraw as the voice of James. I thought they did a phenomenal job with the voice of him, and the songs really Splendid and Troublesome Trucks in this movie, they're good, but not as good as like the original. But overall, I thought it was a pretty nice way, definitely one of the best ways to celebrate 70 years of Thomas and Friends. And it was nice to see Thomas in green and James in black livery. Yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I recommend you watch this one. This is definitely a fan favorite. Next up for number 2, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Now, this film, this also came out in 2015, along with The Adventure Begins, and I thought it was a pretty fantastic way to celebrate 70 years of Thomas and Friends. But anyways, the story plot was pretty nice, and the animation, it was pretty cinematic, and I thought they did a fabulous job with that, and especially the scenes in that movie, pretty cinematic and suspenseful. And the new characters, Ryan and Skiff, were pretty good, and especially Sailor John. I thought he does a phenomenal job being the antagonist of this movie. And we get to see like some returning characters in the show. Like we get to see Donald Douglas return, and Alfie and Oliver, the 2 excavators, and then Max and Monty, the dump trucks, and then Daisy, which appeared basically at the end of the movie. And then we get to see Bert, Mike, and Rex in the TV show finally, instead of just seeing them in the Railway Series books. Overall, I recommend you watch this one. This is definitely one of the great Thomas films. I think it's the best CGI Thomas film of all time, in my opinion. No offense to Adventure Begins. I still love The Adventure Begins. But Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, definitely a great movie. And now, for the number 1 best Thomas and Friends movie of all time. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. If you haven't guessed, it is by far Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Now, why do I love this movie so much? Well, it does bring back nostalgia memories, because, well, I think my family told me like this is like the first Thomas video I ever received, probably on both VHS and DVD, because I remember watching it both on VHS and DVD. And then I remember 5 years ago, like around 2015, like when it was like the 70th anniversary of Thomas, like they aired Thomas the Magic Railroad on PBS Kids Sprout, which I thought it was pretty cool. Anyways, back to the movie. Yeah, the voice actors in this film were pretty good, like Peter Fonda, Marl Wilson, and Alec Baldwin. I especially love Alec Baldwin as Mr. Conductor and as narrator for this movie. Like, he narrated some parts, not all the way, but some parts, like some specific moments, some scenes, if you get what I'm saying. And I also love the soundtrack. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It is gorgeous. Like, I love the music score, beautiful, and I also love the songs too. Like, I love the Magic Railroad version of Really Useful Engine. I also love the Locomotion, which was in the end credits. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, there was a lot going on. And also love the new engines that were introduced in this film, like Lady, Diesel 10, Splatter, and Dodge. They had a pretty great charm of being in this movie, and I thought it's just phenomenal. And what I also love about this movie is it's basically like a combination of like the Thomas the Tank Engine TV show combined with the American spin-off Shining Time Station. And I thought this was like a great way to end the Shining Time Station era, since this came out in 2000, while Shining Time Station came out in like 89 through, let's say, 1996, if I had to guess. I don't remember. And the story plot and the message, I thought they were both pretty meaningful and really, really fantastic, in my opinion. And the lines and the quotes in this film are pretty catchy too, to be honest. So yeah, this is by far the best Thomas and Friends movie ever. And I can't wait for the Blu-ray release. And that is all the Thomas and Friends movies ranked from worst to best. And if you want to tell me what's your favorite Thomas and Friends movie of all time, you can comment down below and tell me what's your favorite Thomas movies and what's your least favorite. So, I'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.